drug test results, so where somebody's tried to use perhaps fake urine, that does happen, as well as adulterated, so somebody's brought their own urine sample from, maybe they had the urine sample from 6 months ago when they were sober, and now they're trying to warm it up in the microwave before the test happens. This does happen. People try to hide urine samples in the cheek of their mouth before going to the bathroom. Yes, they'll use something like a condom, put urine in it in the cheek of their mouth, and yeah, we see it all, but we're mindful of that. Also, any positive alcohol. What?
I was just going to say, I was going to go, so being a drug testing collection, and just to be able to enforce on exactly what you're saying, it really does, you'd be surprised. You know what I mean? It really does happen. It's like I validate exactly what you're saying. Being at a collection center, ourselves, it's amazing what gets tried, the questions that it is exactly that. But I just wanted to validate exactly what you're saying and how they come through the cheek in the mouth. I'm like, no way, right?
Yeah,
they'll dissolve it on the palm.
Yeah, they'll try anything, just like people smuggling things across the border. They'll hide things in cavities, hoping the border security won't check them. So people do that. If they have a really bad addiction, they really will try absolutely anything to cover it up. Also, positive alcohol test results will be reported. That will be a responsibility of the employer, as I already mentioned, or if you're using somebody like DriverCheck, we'll report that for you. Any refusals to test, so if a driver just says, forget it, I'm not doing that test, I think the test is stupid, don't want to do it, that's going to be reported into there as well. Any negative return to duty test results as well, and only negative return to duty test results. If it's positive for a return to duty test, well, that individual has to go back, get themselves sober again, and then try to attempt and do another return to duty test. Knowledge violations as well. So this is where there's a few situations. Let's say an employer sees somebody using alcohol or drugs on duty. That would be a knowledge violation, or more commonly, a citation from a police officer. So if a driver gets a DUI and receives a citation for that, that would be a knowledge violation as well. Reporting, that'll be for employers and TPAs to do. And then reporting that a driver has successfully completed all follow-up testing is prescribed by a substance abuse professional. Again, I've already mentioned that on the previous slide. But that's, if the driver's been given, you got to complete 6 follow-up tests over the course of the next year, you would only report the successful completion of that follow-up program. And that's something, if you're working with DriverCheck, we can help you manage that and keep track of it. That way you don't have to be doing it all by yourself. And then the last 2 points there, substance abuse professional will record into the Clearinghouse the date of initial assessment with that driver, as well as the successful completion of treatment or education. So who's going to have access to the Clearinghouse? Well, there are a few entities, but employers, TPAs like DriverCheck, drivers themselves, they'll have access to their own individual driver file. State authorities, and I say state authorities because it doesn't allow, this database doesn't allow Canadian authorities. So the MTO or any other provincial transportation ministry won't be able to actually check this as of yet. I don't know if there's any negotiations with the US government to be able to check this, but right now it's strictly like US state police forces, so like Michigan State Police, New York State Police Forces, the DMVs down in the United States, so whatever, Michigan Department of Motor Vehicles, they'd be able to check this as well. And they're really going to be checking it to see, most likely if they think something's off with an individual, they're going to be checking, okay, this guy doesn't seem too sober. Besides doing a roadside sobriety test, they might want to check this for a commercial driver and see, okay, yeah, you do have a history of drug or alcohol abuse, and they'd be able to see that. And then last but not least, their National Transportation Safety Board. Again, this is a U.S. government entity, or the NTSB as most people call it. They're going to be checking this database whenever there's been a fatal or major collision on a U.S. interstate or U.S. roadway. So if a truck gets in, causes a fatal collision, the NTSB for sure is going to be checking that driver's record and seeing, okay, do they have a history of drug or alcohol violations? And then the last point here, MROs and substance abuse professional, they're not actually going to be able to access the clearinghouse. They're simply going to be able to report in. So the medical review officers are not going to be able to search a particular individual. So you can't call up DriverCheck and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, can you check driver John Doe? They won't be able to do that. Same with the substance abuse professional. They're only going to be able to report in information for a particular driver. Okay. And then just a quick note here. So there is a process for correcting information in the clearinghouse, and it falls under Part 382.717 of the US DOT regulations. And what it allows is petitioners, which more often than not are going to be drivers or employers. It's going to allow them to challenge the information, the accuracy of information that's in there, but it's not going to allow them to challenge the result itself. So what that means is if a driver, let's say drivers had a negative or a clean alcohol or drug test, and all of a sudden they've got a positive drug or alcohol test on their file, and they're like, wait a minute, I've been sober my whole life kind of thing, and my results are not like indicative of that. Obviously something has been reported incorrectly. That driver can make a petition to the FMCSA and say, hey, wait a second, this result's not accurate. What they can't do though, what a driver and employer can't do, is if the individual actually had a positive alcohol or drug test, they can't challenge the MRO and say, well, I didn't like the doctor and I think he's a bit of an idiot, so I don't like the result, I want it out. You can't challenge that, but you can challenge it if it's been reported inaccurately.